So I'm about to address something that I didn't think needed to be addressed, but it appears that there are people who are still under the idea that Holly's stand is a plot hole, or Holly in herself is a plot hole. They either bring up her lack of mental strength to control the stand, or it disappearing after Dio's defeat, but with the latter being not as frequently brought up, but more and so the same kind of dumb question, where these ideas are debunked when we just look at any of the context we're given about Holly's life at the beginning of Stardust Crusaders, and if we understand how stands work. So I'll be going through Holly as a character and how stands function in Stardust Crusaders and onward, and how Holly doesn't actually add up to any form of a plot hole and works pretty logically throughout the series. So now let's talk about one of the most based moms in all of JoJo. I'm going to begin with Holly's mental strength compared to other stand users in the series. In Stardust Crusaders, we're given the idea of how stands work in themselves. Joseph explains that stands are created through one's life energy. And that means, just like Hamon, anyone can have one. We also have Abdul explain later that you need a strong will or fighting spirit to control your stand. Now, you don't exactly need a truly fighting spirit to control a stand. The stand can be manipulated by other strong emotions or feelings or wills, but it's unusual. Holly, being the kind soul that she is, lacks a fighting spirit or a strong enough will to control her stand. And when Dio forces it out of her, the stand in turn attacks her or causes her harm. And it's really easy to understand this when you realize that Holly's life up to this point has been really easy, and she would never even have to have developed or grow any form of a fighting spirit or a strong, powerful will to control her stand. Because Holly was the only child of Joseph Joestar, and she grew up with one of the richest men as her father, with some of the best connections in all of the world being the Speedwagon Foundation, especially given how close Joseph and Speedwagon were. We also know that Joseph cared very dearly for his daughter, as we can see how well he takes care of her when she's ill. She's probably one of the best raised of all the Joestars. I mean, probably tied with George, but George never lived to see what penicillin was, so I think Holly had it better. In fact, I'm now realizing that she lived with both of her parents, and none of the other Joestars can say that. This complete loving family dynamic, which would result in Holly not needing to forge any form of true fighting spirit of her own, given the fact that she probably never encountered a real struggle in her entire life. She moved out when she was 24 and married a man and moved to Japan, and she learned fluid Japanese. In fact, her life has been pretty great. You may also notice that Holly never really defends herself in conversations. Even when Jotaro is calling her a bitch right to her face, she's just happy to see him. She doesn't have any negative reactions to his insults. In fact, she kind of looks past Jotaro's edgy demeanor and sees him for who he is. Her son. Not only does this show how loving she is for her own family, but also gives us an idea of why she would never gain control over her stand to save her own life. She never puts herself first. She's never able to build up a will to fight. She's on the level with a 4-year-old Josuke. Neither of them are truly weak. They just don't have the strong enough will to control their stands yet. Now, a lot of people would like to bring up that Holly can't control her stand, but a rat and a dog can. Now, this sounds funny, but it ignores a lot of things. Not only is Holly not the first human to control her stand correctly, see those poor surveyors who found the meteor crash site and then died of a horrible disease, or any of the non-worthy people stabbed with a stand arrow given the little Mario dude in part 5. But Iggy also isn't just a dog. He was a dog that took to the streets and became the head of a pack. He also has a spiteful and angry nature. He shows a strong fighting will. Iggy is more than just a dumb dog. He has a sentience to him. And if we're gonna talk about 2 rats who were forcefully given stands as well, now that sounds harder to defend, but if you look into the resiliency of rats, you'll find yourself at the rats of any Weetalk Atoll. And yes, I probably butchered that name. But these rats were not only living on an island that was used as nuclear bomb test sites, but they showed no signs of radiation damage, and they lived on the island for many years. Rats are very resilient creatures, and it's safe to say that they have a strong will to survive, and that would definitely allow them to control their own stand. You notice that a lot of the animals in JoJo who use stands have a high survival instinct or have some form of sentience to them. So in comparison to Holly, they don't seem to be as weird that they can harness their stands and she can't. Now onto the other plot hole which people talk about. It's not as widely talked about though, but it still requires mentioning. Why does Holly's stand disappear when Dio is defeated? This is asked because Jotaro and Joseph both keep their powers after Dio dies, but Holly loses hers. Now this is usually brought up by people who don't seem to understand the issue with Holly and her stand. Well, I'll explain it right now. All beings have life energy. That means all beings can possess a stand. But if a person or a being doesn't have a strong enough will or a strong enough emotion, the stand will never arise. It will never become tangible. If the stand is forced out, like the arrow or through Dio's influence, with Holly, the user, if they aren't strong enough, they begin to be negatively affected by the stand. And since Holly doesn't possess the strength to bring out her own stand, the stand will never manifest again after Dio is defeated, and it allows her to go back to her normal life. It will stop harming her. Her stand becomes as docile as a winter catfish. So with that, I think it goes without saying that Holly and her stand are definitely not plot holes. Now, the real interesting thing would be, though, if Holly could still see Stan past this point, because she was under the influence of having a stand. Or maybe, would there ever be a situation in which Holly would manifest her own stand? Maybe if Jotaro was being attacked right before her, or someone she loves on an equal level was being attacked in front of her. If you have any ideas, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And if you like this video, please be sure to give it a like. That'd be pretty dope. And you know what would be even more dope? If you're gonna go buy Shimonetta, a boring word where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist, over at funimation.com/show/Shimonetta, a boring word where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist. You can also go to Amazon.com and look up Shimonetta and buy yourself a copy there. And if you have Amazon Prime, you get 2-day free shipping. You can get it in 2 days, sometimes 1 day if you want to pay more. That's even more dope. And you should do that. And then you can have a lovely day. Fuck you.